Hi everybody, Dave Rauch here, CEO of ProTech Building Services, and welcome to the Maintenance Manager. Today we have Mark Jones, who's the CEO of Avalon Management, based in Temecula.
Correct.
Correct. And you're also very active in CAI, Mark. You're the incoming president of the Foundation for Community Association Research.
Yes.
FCAR.
Correct.
And so can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with FCAR and CAI, but first, maybe let's talk about your company, Avalon Management.
So we've been around since 1983, and we specialize mostly in planned developments. We now have 3 offices. We have one in Canyon Lake, one in Temecula, and one down in Oceanside. We're a slow growth company. We try to keep our homeowners happy. We have low staff turnover, low client turnover, and everything kind of runs smoothly.
And you told me that one of the keys there are the videos that you make. You make a lot of videos.
We do. It helps explain if a resident, in each part of the resident process, so whether it's regarding an architectural application or paying a bill, or you have a violation that you've received, which are very common interactions with the homeowners, we have videos that explain to the residents every step of the process. So they're not feeling they're being picked on, and they want to understand why they received this letter or what's going to happen with their architectural application. And by the same case, we also use it for board education. In prior years, we used to have board training sessions.
In person?
In person.
Gotcha.
And that is kind of, as people have gotten more busy, and I think that's what everyone says these days, they go, how are you doing? Busy.
Busy.
So we have 29 separate videos that help train the board members.
29?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it helps explain what their duties are and also how we do things.
So now how do they access them? Do they go to your website and go into board member section and then
they
open the video that way? Or?
They have a whole website that they can go to. And also when a new board member starts or a new board starts, we start a drip campaign to where every 2 weeks they get a link to a new video.
Oh,
so they're not overwhelmed. So if you go and you're looking at 30 videos, you're like, oh, what do I study first?
Right.
So instead, we drip it to them on a 2-week basis. The new board member gets a link, and we do it in kind of a priority basis, like what they need to know first.
Gotcha. That's great news because they can always go back to it. They can get the new board members. As you know, boards change quite often.
Indeed.
And so that's cool. And then for the residents, is it on your public website?
It is.
Okay.
Most of the stuff is public facing.
Okay.
I believe that I'm a big believer in public facing websites for both the management company and for the associations, because where do people want to go and get the information? If it's behind a portal, you're going to lose 30% of the people that need the information.
Right.
So we put it out there on the respective staff. So if you're an architectural administrator, you have links to those videos. Or if they submit an application, you're going to get an email, the resident will get an email with a link to that video that explains that part of the process. And the same thing with violations or how to pay your bills, how to access your websites, how to download the mobile app. So it's in multiple ways. It's on email signatures by respective department. And if you go to our website, you'll see homeowner videos, and you'll see a whole list of videos that pertain to residents, but also by department, they'll have tags in their email that explain, like click on this to learn about your architectural application. If it's the accounts receivable department, it's like how to use ACH.
So you try to put everything you possibly can on videos? Is that the strategy?
What we do is
That's smart.
We go by department to department, and we look at the questions that people ask the most. So I'll go and I'll sit and I'll talk with staff for 2 days. We'll develop a list of the most commonly asked questions or the pain points that residents and boards have. Then we'll craft our video based upon those that explain why we're doing this and what the next step of the process is. So both the residents and the board members feel more comfortable in understanding that process.
Sure.
I mean, you get a letter from your management company, it's mostly bad news. And your first reaction, of course, is going to be a little adversarial.
Yeah.
So we try to de-escalate and kind of
Mhm.
explain the process to people.
And then when you get a new manager in place, I'm sure it makes management training a little easier. You just have them go through and watch all the videos that the boards have to watch.
We do. We also we have a training website for our staff,
Hmm.
and this year we implemented something called Guru. So we leveraged all of our resources, our training resources. They would normally have to go to a website, click on the training website, click on operations, and then watch the videos.
Hmm.
Now, using Guru, it just simply is like a Google search for all of our resources.
Cool.
So for all the internal resources, now the manager has to type in meeting minutes,
Oh,
and
that's
all the
great.
materials pop up from the training website that have to do with minutes. Huge time
Training,
saver.
training made easy.
Absolutely.
So
Access to
that's
information.
a game changer, I think. Videos and the use of videos. Are there any other strategies that you could share with the rest of the viewers about management strategies they could use to?
Well, I think that the biggest disruption and improvement is going to be in AI this year
Aha,
and in the coming years.
right.
So AI is going to really help elevate all staff members to a level
Hmm.
of understanding that they couldn't have before.
Hmm.
They kind of, you can take someone with 6 months experience, provide them with an AI-based tool that leverages the knowledge base as well as the association's documents,
Hmm.
uh, and they can query that as opposed to having to learn and spend years learning.
Hmm.
So it quickly accelerates and provides all the staff members with tools to use.
Jeez. And so that's training too.
Oh,
And
yeah,
and I know that you're active on this subject for the foundation.
we are.
I was there when you made a presentation about the landscape
Yeah.
notice, and I thought that was a great example of how to leverage AI to help management companies become more productive.
So here's the, the most frustrating part for me on that.
Uh-huh.
And it was a training video on tree trimming. So we're going to do a notice about to the residents about
Hmm.
tree trimming. So we've done notices for years.
Yep.
And now we thought, well, we'll create a video for one.
Uh-huh.
So we'll say, because if they don't read the notice, maybe they'll watch the video.
Right.
And we used AI to help generate it, and AI came up with a few things that even after 40 years in the business, I didn't think of.
Yeah.
So it was a little uh, humiliating that I
Yeah.
didn't know that. But one of the things that the AI came up with was put your pets away
Hmm.
while the tree trimming crew is out.
Hmm.
We had never thought of that. So it is a very valuable
Yeah.
tool.
Yeah. Are there any other things that you're using AI for in management?
Yeah, and the interesting thing that we've seen is that you want to roll AI out to your staff members.
Hmm.
So even like in dealing with a difficult homeowner, you want to be able to craft a response that needs a certain skill set. With AI, you can put that issue into AI, and it'll provide a pretty good response.
Gotcha.
So staff is using it. We're using it to evaluate RFPs. We're using it to analyze
To
documents now.
evaluate RFPs?
Yes.
How does that work? So you put the RFP into the AI chat box and then say, "Hey, tell me if this
Improve it.
proposal sounds."
You can improve it, and then on the other
That's
side,
great.
and the other side of that is we're now
Yeah.
experimenting with RFPs that we can then take the results of, drop them into AI, and it'll tell us across the vendors, who's high, who's low, and who's the most qualified.
Wow.
And it actually works.
That's a game changer.
Yeah, and
That's
you're
great.
talking about changing something that we used to take maybe
Hmm.
hours to sit and evaluate,
Hmm.
half a dozen bids to 5 minutes.
Looking forward, are there any things that you see coming that you're not using yet that you see coming that management companies will be able to incorporate in terms of AI?
Oh, certainly.
I know lawyers have been talking about it.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, I think that the next boon, and it's driven by the rising expectation of the homeowners, and just the capacity that the management companies have, is that you're going to start using AI to interact with the residents. That's probably going to be the
Hmm.
next hurdle. There's already companies out there that do that,
Hmm.
but it'll be both an audio and say texting. So right now you can use AI, a homeowner can use AI to simply text questions. It'll query the AI and give them back the responses. Often it's tied to the software back end, so they can look up balances, they can make payments, They can ask where the, what the pull hours are. And the next step in that evolution is going to be the audio portion, to where they won't have to text, they'll just simply talk.
So this is kind of like having an AI as your assistant manager.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing, huh?
Yeah, and it's probably going to. I think that the stats that I've read is that they'll answer 30% of the questions.
Wow,
So if you're limiting 30% of the customer service calls that come in, that's pretty impactful.
that's amazing. How far away do you see this?
I
5 years, 10 years,
Probably within 15 months.
15 months.
Yeah, they already have, like, the interaction with using texting is already
Uh-huh.
there and already active and already being used.
Wow.
It was interesting. I read a study a few years ago, or not a few years ago, a few months ago, where they queried 5,000 customer service representatives. Not necessarily, it wasn't in our industry, and for internal use. And what it did was it elevated the top performers' productivity by 17%, but it elevated the bottom producers by 55%. So giving them the tools on the inside of things boosted their
Jeez.
productivity.
AI. It's a game changer. And some people say, that AI is going to be more impactful to our society than electricity or the automobile. And I just can't compute that. I've been using it on a cursory basis for about a year, and I plug things in and I see what comes out, and it's like, wow, that's really smart. And so I can sort of see the potential, but I still don't see the big changes that I think some people see coming.
Well, I think that you're going to see most management companies and their software providers integrate AI into their operations, and that's going to boost the productivity of all staff members.
Jeez.
And that is the key: is making sure that that all staff members have access to it. Accounts receivable, accounting. You want to solve a complex Excel program, you can literally type in the program, type what you need in Excel, and it'll tell you what the prompts are.
So it's productivity. It's not just marketing.
It's huge. It's a huge productivity increaser.
That's so cool.
And leveraging knowledge that someone walking new into your company wouldn't have access to, but now they do.
Mark, so let's talk about what makes a successful HOA. Obviously, having a good management company, having good vendors, I think it really starts with having a good board of directors that enjoys learning and growing and understanding what their real jobs are. What do you think it makes up a successful HOA?
Well, Dave, you're very right on that. And that is the board of directors are the leadership of the community, and they drive the direction of the management. We have to explain to homeowners it's not our policy, it is the board's policies. So the number one tool that would benefit the association is for board members to be trained, either through CAI, the board training to videos or materials that most management companies provide. But it's really understanding their documents and understanding their roles and their responsibilities.
Right.
You get a new board in, and they're going to have a propensity to do it however they did it at work. It's like, this is how we did it at Acme Company, and it's a huge firm, so we're going to mirror that. But they don't take time to understand and read the documents and understand what their roles are, and they don't lean on their manager to provide them direction. Throughout my 40-year career, boards always have a propensity to keep the dues the same. It's like they feel that they are judged, and to a certain point they are, by the residents, as long as they keep the budget the same.
Right.
So if dues don't go up, they did a good job. But it's very prevalent. And when you see large shifts, and this is why we don't take on communities that are in dire financial straits, because if I come in as a new manager and I have to solve 30 years of deferred maintenance and improper budgeting, and I've got a special assess the homeowners $4 million, no one's going to like me. No one's going to like the board. And oftentimes, even when there's board provides a solution, the homeowners will recall the board. Because someone's got a better idea.
It's so mind-boggling to me that boards don't understand that the dues have to go up every year when everything else is going up every year. And in other words, you look at inflation, 3% a year, 4% a year. Wages go up 2 to 3 to 4% a year. Cost of food, cost of gas. I mean, everything goes up in cost. How can assessments not go up? It's just
You're,
insane.
you're 100%. And it's
Yeah.
really, it's a combination of training and also input from the manager and now through CAI. Because sometimes even if they're discounting the expertise of the manager, then CAI provides the resources for the manager to give to the board.
Gotcha.
That gives them affirmation of what they're recommending. So very important.
Now, do you have any videos in your company's video library that talks about the importance of reading the CC&Rs, the governing documents, the articles of incorporation, the bylaws, and
except for articles?
Do you find that they actually listen and do read everything?
So we have about a 35% success rate.
Gotcha.
So, and as long as those 35% are the leaders, because amongst a board, you're always going to have someone that drives that. They're that strong personality on the board that will drive the rest of the board. If we can train them and they understand their roles and responsibilities and their governing documents and the laws, then we've got a win there.
That's great. Yeah, it's I think so important to have the right leader in that president's board seat, a leader who is kind of a servant leader who wants to really help everybody and guide too and make decisions. You got to make decisions.
Oh, indeed. And it's education. They also, the other side of that is they have to follow the advice of their manager and their legal counsel or their vendors, their maintenance vendors. When you say, I'm sorry, we need to tear this out and replace it, they should do that as opposed to finding a less expensive alternative.
Right.
So education, trusting your vendor partners, and reading your governing documents.
Right. 3
tools of success.
You had mentioned manager turnover a minute ago.
Yes.
Can we talk about that for a minute? As a service provider that's been around for some time, we saw management turnover really begin to take off in 2016, 17, 18. But then when COVID hit, it went crazy. And so there's still quite a bit of manager turnover. Can you talk about that and maybe give tips on how to avoid that or fix it?
So CAI, the foundation, did a research on that. And it was interesting. They queried the CEOs and they queried the managers. So they queried the CEOs and said, why do you believe that there's manager turnover? And then we went to the managers and said, why are you, what are the detractions for being employed? So the CEOs responded by overwhelming amount that it was pay. The employees responded that it was either a hostile and toxic work environment, but their number 1 and 2 complaints were unreasonable expectations of residents and board members, followed by micromanagement of boards. That was the top 3 issues that drove to manager turnover.
Didn't let him be a manager.
Yeah.
I mean, Gallup did a huge study just recently, 22 million people in the workplace, and came up with the fact that it wasn't pay, it was engagement.
Yes.
So people leave a company because they're not engaged and because they don't have a leader that they respect in the company. So I'm sure it's the same thing with managers.
Indeed. Most companies have departmental meetings. They'll have a manager meeting, they'll have an accounts receivable meeting, they'll have an accounting meeting, those type of things. A year and a half ago, we started implementing one-on-ones. So I personally meet with every manager that works for me every month for about 30 minutes.
Wow.
And my VP meets with all other staff members for about the same time every month.
That's great. That's engagement.
It is engagement. It is also the number 1 thing that my staff has said that they appreciate the most of what we do, because they have a direct line to the president. And what we found, we always wanted to find our pain points before someone gets fired or someone leaves. So by having the one-on-ones, we're able to learn what their challenges are. Like most managers want to do a good job and they're afraid to bring problems up the ladder. But by having one-on-ones, it lets them, in a private discussion, discuss about problems. And that's led to us terminating a number of accounts where we found that, and board members are acting inappropriately, unreasonable expectations, texting at 10 o'clock at night and demanding responses, those type of things.
That's great. And just listening, I think, is extremely helpful.
Oh, yeah. So the fact that they can voice it, and also it improves our operations
Mhm.
because we'll find out where the holes are, and the
Right.
manager knows. Only the manager knows where the pain points are
Gotcha.
and how many they can manage. And of course, that's also a function of the management company.
And I guess that's where that monthly one-on-one would be helpful because you get a sense as to whether they have too much on their plate.
I agree.
If they don't want to come out and say, hey, I can't manage these 10 communities, I need to only manage 8 communities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we also believe that managers should all be trained and work toward their PCAM designations.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen a lot of applicants that do not have the credentials, or they have the very basic ones.
Mm-hmm.
They have the starter ones, and they really need to develop their career more and put more tools in the toolbox. So the courses provided through CAI provide that tool that kind of helps them
Mm-hmm.
gain that 5 or 10 years experience that really
Sure.
helps them.
Sure.
So proper training is extremely important. The more you know, the
That's
more you
awesome.
can help.
That's great. Amazing. Are there any other tips that you can give on how to get that engagement, how to help reduce manager turnover?
Well, reducing manager turnover, all managers that I've met want, most 90% of them want to do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
But if you overburden the manager with too many accounts
Mm-hmm.
or problematic accounts, that manager will fail.
That's a great topic. What is too many accounts? Now, obviously, it would depend. Maybe 7 condos is a lot harder to manage than 7 PUDs, right?
100%.
But so maybe it's not really, there's not really a formula for it. It has to be kind of a custom determination.
Well, so the number one detriment in our community that I see is that people bid their communities based upon market rate of a 200-unit condominium as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the scope of work. And the scope of work can really change dramatically
Mm-hmm.
between communities. So one that has maintained their roofs and their balconies and their landscaping infrastructure to a high degree is going to be an easier account that you're walking into 30 years of deferred maintenance,
Right.
leaky roofs, bad plumbing, sewage backups.
Right.
Those are really bad things for an association manager to try to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So by being client selective, so there's two sides of it, of the management company. I can improve operations to the nth degree, and the other half of that is really client selection.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to keep your managers, you need to be selective about the clients that you choose.
Sure.
And price accounts accordingly.
Yeah. It's hard to train a community manager on what it's like to go through a huge community-wide remodel or repiping or re-roofing. I mean, that is just, you have to go through it to really learn what
Yeah,
it's
you really
about.
do. We also
So,
have a collaboration tool. So all the managers are on, we'll say it's an equivalent of a Slack channel. We use
Mhm.
Google for it. It's called Google Chat, but we create channels for the different departments.
Oh,
And so if a manager has a problem, they can type it in, and they're leveraging all the resources of all the managers within Avalon.
mhm.
So they get the benefit of their experience.
Awesome.
It's a super great tool.
Awesome. Now, do you have plans on expanding your business in Southern California? You're in Temecula, Oceanside, and you said
Marietta. I'm sorry.
Muriel.
Canyon Lake, Oceanside, and Temecula.
Gotcha. Okay. So are you expanding or are you growing or are you gonna grow? You said grow slow.
Yeah, I've always been a proponent of slow growth.
Uh-huh.
One, we like stability, and we like accounts that we
Mm-hmm.
know that we can do the work
Mm-hmm.
and be successful at it.
Uh-huh.
So the percentage of associations that fit our niche is probably less than 10% of the calls that we get.
Mm-hmm.
So we turn away about 95% of the people that call us. So we're narrowly focused on a specific market segment, which are planned developments within a 30-minute drive time
Mm-hmm.
of one of the offices,
Mm-hmm.
and that one that has funding in their reserves and an adequate budget.
So that's amazing. So quality over quantity.
100%.
But I think you're unique, and I'm sure I'm wrong, but I think you're unique in that you qualify clients
Oh, yes.
quite stringently.
Oh, indeed.
And that's very cool.
So many people will bid on a project that they know nothing what their scope of work is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we ask for the governing documents.
Mm-hmm.
We ask for a copy of the audit, which will show any financial problems that they have. We ask for a copy of the reserve study. We then meet with the board of directors,
Mm-hmm.
and then we inspect the community.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we take on an account that is a problem, then it's a problem throughout the entire company.
Yeah.
And that will lead to not only manager burnout, but it trickles down to accounts
Sure.
payable. If you're in a situation where something needs to be fixed and you don't have the funds to do it,
Yeah.
it's a horrible problem for the manager.
Let's switch over to the foundation and the
Yes.
work that you've done recently and what's coming up. But tell us a little bit first how you got involved in CAI and when.
Oh gosh.
And I know you were involved in CACM too, right?
I was one
Yeah.
of the original 12 founders.
Ah, wow.
So, and we thought we'd do something with the state, but CACM, my main focus has been CAI.
Right.
It goes back to probably 1984 when I would attend
Wow.
LA chapter meetings, and there'd be like 8 people there.
Wow.
When we moved out to the Inland Empire, we helped form the chapter out there. There wasn't a chapter there before, so now we're Greater Inland Empire chapter, and it's grown to be quite successful. But CAI is really the only research and educational tool for board members across the country to access and gain information and training.
Right.
And under FCAR, so on the foundation, that's been the most exciting adventure through CAI that I have, because what the foundation does, it looks at problems that are surfacing across all the associations across the United States. They do research, and then they come up with solutions as well. So their research on aging infrastructure predated the towers falling down by a year.
Exactly. It presaged it. I mean,
it's
kind of eerie how that
it was so,
really
in fact, I've got
spoke to them.
goosebumps right now because they recognized the problem, they did the research, they published the paperwork, and it was well needed, well timed. Unfortunately, the message didn't resonate with enough of the boards to make a difference. And then the towers fell, and now there's more focus.
Right. And so there's that issue, but the other issue you've been working on at the foundation, of course, is the AI, which we discussed, the AI, and electrical vehicles, and electrical vehicle charging stations, and the electrical vehicle issues in mid-rises and high-rises.
Oh, yes.
And what other things have you worked on other than the AI, the electrical vehicles, the infrastructure, aging infrastructure?
So, obviously, during COVID, cost rose, and boards always have a propensity to want to keep the dues low. So we did rising costs in community associations to let them know what the actual increase in the costs have been across different sectors.
Right.
So it was sort of an affirmation of you need to address your budget and you need to address it to current times. I mean, so construction costs went up 42%. So that's insurance.
Huge.
So it was a tool to provide education to the board members that justify the increase in assessments that they had to make.
Right.
There was also, we noticed a trend back in 2019 that the number of complaints from homeowners was rising. So we looked at that, and we looked at the risings, like, all right, let's get some data on that. So we did a SNAP survey and a full study on that. And also, not only did we want to find out what the causation was and what the pain points were, but how to mitigate it.
Right.
And so it was a very successful report. I think it was a harmony and diversity in community associations. It's a great report. And I think we did the study in 2021 or 2022. So go back to 2018, where there were no complaints of harassment or discrimination. The reserve study said 52% of all associations have now had harassment and discrimination claims.
Jeez.
Significant increase.
Is that because of COVID or just because the research wasn't there before?
No, we definitely saw a change in terms of on when I say us, when I'm talking about Avalon.
Sure.
We noticed the data. We brought it to the research committee. We did a study. That's what the SNAP surveys are for, to gather information, and then we use that to springboard into more information.
Right. Right.
And we hire firms to do the research and find out what was mitigation. And based on that mitigation, we found that homeowners that were unhappy weren't talking to their neighbors. So how do you get a homeowner to be less upset? Is you invite them to community events, you feed them, you get to know the neighbors, you get to know the board, you get to know the management company. So now Or a neighbor would be a faceless person, or a board member would be a faceless person, or the management company would be a faceless person. Now, once you've broken bread with somebody and you've met them, you might be more apt to have what we call voluntary compliance. So you're going to mow your yard and you're going to pay your dues. But if you don't feel part of that community, you're not going to. Your first reaction is going to be, you shouldn't do this, I shouldn't have to pay this, and I don't like the guy's lawnmower or their barking dog.
Yeah. That pools, pets, and parking.
Indeed.
The triple Ps. But so there's another aspect to the foundation, and I think under the foundation is the think tank.
Think tank, yes.
And you're involved in the think tank too, right?
We are.
So can you just, for our viewers, just describe a little bit of how the think tank works and what kind of projects it undertakes?
It's the same thing. It is the investigative arm. The think tank brings suggestions from a diverse group of people that they see that are topics that need to be brought before the board of the foundation, or moved over to the research committee for further information.
Gotcha.
So it's a real gathering of information. So it was through the think tank where the number of complaints, the rising complaints, were qualified.
I see.
Then it went to the research committee, and then it went to a SNAP survey, and then it went to a full research project.
So it percolates up.
It does.
To the foundation board.
Yeah, and so the think tank is important because it brings a lot of diverse people across the industries that are involved in associations that see the problems. And talking to frontline people, people that interact, is crucially important.
Right. And I know, I think there's now 45 or 42,000 members of CAI.
Yes.
Which is a lot.
It is.
And chapters in every state, 5 or 7 chapters in California, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. But there's a lot of people that don't even understand what the foundation or the think tank do. And I think that the foundation website is not the same website as CAI's website, caionline.org. It's a separate website. And so I would encourage everybody to take a look at that website. Do you know what the URL is?
I don't know the URL.
Okay.
I visited again today. So
yeah.
There's a link on. So if you're on the CAI website, you can Google.
It'll link you
can
over.
Put in a search for foundation, and it'll link over to it.
Gotcha.
I think they could probably do more promotion of it.
Yeah.
And in there, you can download all of the research and all of the SNAP surveys and all of the best practices as well.
Right.
So it's a pretty outstanding website, but it is separate because it's a separate and distinct organization.
Great. I think we've covered most of the very interesting topics, and so thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate your help.
You bet.
Appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, Dave.
And thanks for all you do for the industry.
Very good.